Hey, what's up? This is Kevin from Kevin's Barbecue Joints, and in this episode, I talked to Carey Bringle from Peg Leg Porker in Nashville, Tennessee. We dive deeply into his restaurant, which he's had his restaurant for 18 years in Nashville, Tennessee, and the various menu items and how he's cooking and what he's doing, and also his various products, his spirit line that they've created, all these amazing things that he's done. But I think what is really, really great about this interview is you get a chance to kind of see the man and the passion that he has and his integrity. And when he believes in something, you can tell in the interview that he strongly believes in it. We talk about David Chang's Ugly Delicious. He was in that episode, the barbecue episode of that. We talk about the controversy with the Brooklyn barbecue photo that was blowing up the internet about a month and a half ago. And he doesn't hold back at all. He's direct and wonderful, and I think you're going to really love it, and I think you'll really get a chance to get to know Carey more if you don't know him at all, and you're definitely going to want to visit his restaurant after this. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Please subscribe to this. I'll be adding at least one of these a week, along with a ton of other barbecue stuff, but enjoy this. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Can you hear me all right, or I need to put in an earpiece?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Excellent, excellent. So I wanted to kind of go over your background. I know about you, but a lot of people might not know necessarily know your history, and then kind of the progression towards your barbecue joint, and then all your brand itself. So
Sure.
I know that's a lot.
We got our hands in a lot of pots.
Yeah, that's your fault, not my fault.
That's right.
So how did you get started? Were you cooking as a kid? I know that I remember reading that your father was involved with the barbecue business, or he.
No, my uncle cooked barbecue, but he didn't do it for a living. Okay. But he competed in the very first Memphis in May.
That's what it was.
Championship, and so I really learned from my Uncle Bruce.
Okay.
But my grandparents, my family settled in Tennessee in 1827. Wow. In Tipton County, which is Covington, and then my family were farmers and owned the cotton gin in Tipton County, the Bringle Gin. Oh. And so it was just, West Tennessee barbecue. It was always just sort of part of the culture. My grandfather was an OBGYN in Memphis and delivered about half that town and a lot of barbecue families. And growing up, my grandmother always would clip out every article about every barbecue place or Memphis in May or anything and send them to me in high school and in college. And so I started cooking at a young age with my uncle, and then have been cooking ever since.
So she knew that you had the bug.
She placed the bug in me.
Oh,
so yeah. My grandmother really, it was important on both sides of my family, but my grandmother, Eva Jean, really pushed it with the articles and with taking me around to the different barbecue places. We've got a place on Pickwick Lake, so we would stop at places along the way, and we'd go to Bozo's in Mason, Tennessee, or we'd go to Lewis's Barbecue, and it was actually Lewis's store in Moscow, Tennessee, and then we'd go to Leonard's, and back when John Will's was open, we'd go to John Will's a lot, and he was a friend, and, Rendezvous, just everywhere. It was really, part of our culture.
Did you think that you'd eventually be opening a restaurant, or did you want to work at a restaurant someday?
I didn't. I knew that eventually at some point I probably wanted to open a barbecue restaurant.
Oh, wow.
And that realization probably came after college, maybe a few years after college. But and after college, I moved to Memphis, and I was living in Memphis for 3 years. And so, I joined a Memphis in May team and cooked with them, with Hog Wild for 12 years before striking off on my own. And so, I had the bug, and it was something that I eventually wanted to do. I swore that I'd never do it until I retired, but I ended up doing it before then.
Yeah. What was it like in those days with the competition circuit, or even Memphis in May? What was it? Was it different than it is now?
Oh, completely different. In fact, I just had that. Mark Lambert from Sweet Swine of Mine was just in here. He just left. And we had that conversation. When I was on Hog Wild, first they were the Rolling Wonder Pigs, and the first time I ever visited Memphis in May, I went with my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and her family were on the team, the Rolling Wonder Pigs, and it was a huge party down there. And then we ended up getting kicked out that year. And then, so I wanted to join the team, but I had to wait a year until we formed Hog Wild. And then it was Ernie Miller and Trip Murray that were doing Hog Wild, and Jay Good and a lot of other folks. But it was completely different back there. You cooked what you cooked. I mean, you cooked what you cooked for your family, and then you put it in the box. And then, you know, if on your on-site, you could razzle and dazzle them. But nobody was cooking, nobody was cubing up barbecue or slicing it, or you were pulling it and you were putting it in the box and turning it in. And kind of will the best man win. You know, now it's completely, almost every box is engineered. You know?
Yeah, it's very regimented, and yeah.
It's not what you would serve your family at home, and it's a bastardization of what you would normally cook or what we cook in the restaurant, typically at competitions. And that just kind of is what it is. That's how it's evolved, but it's very different.
Yeah, it still probably has that camaraderie and that barbecue family that's that 2-3 days together, which is a wonderful thing. But it does seem a lot more regimented and specific.
Oh yeah. No, it's still, this will be my 27th year of going down to Memphis in May and competing. And so it still has that camaraderie. We go because we love it. Memphis is a crapshoot, and so it's up in the air. It's anybody's game. Mm-hmm. And it can get political, and believe me, there's plenty of feelings that a lot of people have that they may not express, but it is what it is. It's a great time, and I never cooked a whole lot on the competition circuit. I mainly did Memphis and May.
So that was your thing, okay?
Yeah, because I did it so consistently. Now we went and did a few other competitions and stuff, but I'm a Memphis and May MBN guy. We never really did any. KCBS competitions. Totally different atmosphere. Actually, the first time we did the Peg Leg Porkers team, we did a KCBS competition out at Nashville Shores, and they came around at 9:30 or something, told me it was about to be quiet time, and I said, "What the hell are you talking about, quiet time? I thought this was a barbecue competition. I got an RV full of people here. We're watching Jerry Springer. We just finished our first keg," and they didn't dig that. It was they almost kicked us out 4 times.
Why quiet? What's the point of that?
It's KCBS, man. That's what they did. It was totally different atmosphere, totally different regimen. You need to ask Ray Lampy because he was next to me, and we didn't know each other at the time. We about got in a physical fight. He and his team went to bed at about 10 o'clock with their tent right up next to our smoker, and we almost went to blows. We didn't even know each other back then. We figured this out about 10 years after the fact that we were the ones next to each other. But
just posted his interview last night, and in that interview he talks about Jerry Springer, specifically about you and Jerry Springer. So that's never leaving his memory ever.
It was fun. It was great. We had a good time. We're good friends now, but it didn't feel like it that night.
So everyone went to bed, but you guys were still up.
That's right.
That's so bizarre. It just seems like something that's like a way to let loose, and I don't know. Maybe it's different for different competitions.
Well, down in Memphis in May, people are up all night. They're partying all night. They'll shut you down briefly, but then everybody's in their booths and staying up. Still a lot of parties going on, but it was very unusual for me, that first KCBS competition, to be told that it was quiet time.
Now with your leg issue, was that something that happened in between that time to start? Like, did you take some time off, or did you take time off? You had to take some time off from life, right? Too.
Yeah, no, I lost my leg when I was 17.
Oh, you were 17? Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, I thought it was.
Yeah, later. I was 17, so it was before I ever started on cooking down at Memphis in May.
Okay.
And and I cooked, like I said, with Hog Wild for years. broke many a leg down there on the jetties down in Memphis, because back then you backed up to the river.
That's what I heard.
There was no sidewalk. You had a dirt road, and you were backed up to the river, and you had a generator that was sitting back there on the jetties. And so, these big, huge boulders that are 3 or 4 feet wide. And I remember slipping on one and cracking a leg clean in half. I had to duct tape that sucker back together. I've had legs go dead down there where they wouldn't bend. They were stiff. And so I'm pretty hard on prosthetics. And sometimes Memphis in May is not the best place to take care of a leg.
Apparently not. That's a great takeaway from this.
Yeah, exactly.
When did you start getting closer to having a restaurant, and when did that happen? Or did you create products for Peg Leg Porker prior to opening the restaurant?
I did. The first thing that I created was a dry seasoning. Okay. And it was just a dry seasoning, not as much of a rub. And it was more in the style of a rendezvous for a true dry rib. We rub it on butts and do use it as a rub in some instances, but it's a barbecue seasoning. So I developed that, and then I developed a sauce. I had a sponsor for my team when I broke off Lobel's in New York.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Fifth generation butchers on Madison Avenue, and Evan Lobel is a close personal friend, and he asked me to, package that for retail so he could sell it on his website and in his catalog. And that's what I did for a while. And so we started to build up the reputation with the team and with the products. We never really pushed them out there mainstream retail, but people who wanted them, knew where to get them. And so that's kind of how that started.
So that started first. And then from there, Did you create like any sauces or anything else, or did you go straight to the restaurant?
No, I had my dry season, then I had my sauce and a white sauce, and I had several different businesses. I was in the medical industry for years in the clinical lab business, and then I was in IT, and so I did a number of things and started a number of companies. I started a Medicare Part B billing company. And so I did a number of things. And finally, I decided that I wanted to do the restaurant. And I was consulting at the time. And so it gave me the flexibility to build the restaurant while I still was able to make a living. Gotcha. And that really was the impetus. And I also waited. I discussed it a lot with my wife. And we waited until our children were old enough to where we felt like, that they could work in the restaurant and they could contribute and be ready.
And also too, you knew how much time a restaurant takes. Like, it consumes a lot of your time.
You never know how much time a restaurant takes until you own a restaurant.
You know now.
You may think you know how much time a restaurant takes, but until you open it. So, for the first year or two, I was here every day that we were open, every shift that we were open. So was my right leg man, we call him Steve Dresch, who's been cooking with me for 15 years. And he was a welder by trade. He came to work with me, and now he runs the pits. And he was here with me every day of the week as well.
What was that like when you first opened? How was the response?
We got a pretty good response when we first opened, because we had spent a lot of time building a brand and a name for ourselves over the years. And so, it's always nerve-wracking, but we probably were a little bit smoother than some, just because we had spent a lot of time talking up the brand and people anticipated its opening.
And were you open 6 days a week at that time?
6 days a week.
6 days a week, right?
We're not open on Sundays.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
And what were you serving? Were you serving exactly the same menu back then as you are now? And what is that menu?
So yeah, we serve, our staple is our dry ribs. We cook butts, and so sandwiches and pulled pork. We do a yard bird, which is a half a chicken, and we do wings. Okay. And we do a Memphis sushi, which is a traditional sausage cheese platter. And then we got pimento cheese and cream cheese and pepper jelly as an appetizer. We got about 6 sides, but we've got a very limited menu. Mm-hmm. We specialize, and we don't serve chicken fingers and we don't serve burgers. And
thank goodness.
Well, you know, a lot of people feel like they have to be everything to everybody and they got to please every demographic. And we're fortunate enough to be in a city that's big enough and we get enough tourism to where we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. Some people in smaller towns have to do a lot more stuff on their menu just to get that customer back.
And are you selling out throughout the day? Like, is there a time where you sell out of a specific item, or do you have staggered shifts at all? Or?
So we do staggered shifts, and we cook like our ribs. We cook all day, so we do sell out. You know, sometimes we'll sell out of ribs in the middle of the day because we didn't expect that much of a morning rush. Mm-hmm. And then now we'll have another batch come off. So if you'll wait 2 hours, there'll be ribs back on the menu again. But when you're cooking fresh and when you're trying to cook throughout the day, you know, we do a lot of covers. We feed a lot of people. We're fast casual, so we're counter service. But we do run out of pulled pork sometimes. We do run out of ribs sometimes. And we cook fresh every day, so that happens. We want to run out, but I don't want to run out until we're closing.
Of course.
I don't like running out at 4 in the afternoon if I'm open till 9 at night. That's, in my view, that's bad pit management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you have an optimal goal, but in the end, you want to be able to satisfy and serve every customer you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? If they're here to eat. Let me tell you, somebody comes to your spot and it's a destination spot and they've traveled to get there and you run out of food, they're pissed.
Super pissed.
They don't take it lightly.
No, and it seems that's the case for a lot of destination barbecue spots. They're out of the way. They're not necessarily close by. So is that something, if people call the head, could they at least say, hey, can you reserve me something? Because if you know they're an hour away, is that something that sometimes happens?
We sometimes get those calls. That's not, we don't.
You don't want that.
We don't. Well, we don't. It's hard for us to reserve a product for somebody we don't know whether they're going to come in or not.
I agree. No, I agree completely. I've just heard people have done that, and it's an odd thing. I've never done that for a restaurant before.
Oh yeah, we get all kinds of calls. You know, we get a lot of gluten free. You know, is that gluten free? Oh, no. We tell them that Dresch's Uncle Gluten just got out of prison and he's free.
So well, that's great, because it's you know, and I'm sure you've seen the restaurant business change too, especially with how Yelp got so big, and then also now with like so much social media. I'm sure it's the world's changed for you.
Well, yeah, social media is huge and it helps out a lot. It's something that if you stay on top of, it can really enhance and help your business. You know, the rating sites, a lot of people in the industry hate them. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't look at any reviews. I'm going to tell you that I'm the opposite. I look at every single one. If a Google or a Yelp or a TripAdvisor comes in, it comes across my phone and I read almost every one.
Oh, that's nice.
And the reason that I do that is because there's plenty of idiots out there that have some dumbass critique that's not worth reading. But there's a lot that have a valid critique, and that's a way to kind of keep a pulse on your business. And as much as you don't like to read it sometimes, you need to understand that there can be valid criticism in there, and it may be something that you or your staff need to work on.
That's a good point.
That's what we do. And as a result, I think we're the highest rated in Nashville and probably one in the state. With a large amount of reviews, and I'll answer them, and
That's good to know too. I was going to ask you, do you actually answer them?
I'll answer them good and bad. Oh, you need to go back and read some of my responses. I think you get quite tickled. Well, I'm not afraid to shame somebody for some bullshit they put on my page. So you know, and we try and do it I try and do it in a respectful and not ugly or lose my temper kind of way. Mm-hmm. But I will make a point if I need to, and sometimes you need to.
Well, especially too, if you know that where they're coming from is a bad place. Like if you know it's not a truthful review. I've seen reviews for restaurants that talk about meats the restaurant doesn't even serve.
We've had that plenty. Yeah. They're like, I didn't like the brisket. Well, we don't serve brisket. I mean, we say if you want brisket, go to Texas. Hell, I mean, you know, we got a shirt that says it. So
I've seen that shirt.
You know.
So what other products do you have? I know there's a whiskey, right? Do you still have the whiskey? You do, right?
Yeah, we own a spirits company as well, and so we have Peg Leg Porker Tennessee Straight Bourbon Whiskey. We've got an 8-year-old. We did a limited release 12-year-old. This last year, we've won a gold medal with our 8-year-old. We won a double gold with our 12-year-old. And so we're pretty proud of that. We've got our food products line. We actually just released a retail package of pork rinds that we're selling now. We've got a line of smokers that we manufacture. So we've got our hand in a lot of different pots. We sell a lot of merchandise and clothing. We've now got that out on Amazon, and then our pork rinds. And then we just released, actually next Friday, we release a line of frozen pre-cooked product that will be distributed by Cisco Nashville to other restaurants if they're interested. And so, and then we'll be taking those products and doing a mail order nationwide.
Oh, that's genius. That's really smart. So will that be, but so right now it's just Cisco Nashville?
Yeah, we launch next Friday with Cisco Nashville, and it'll be ribs, whole butts, pulled pork, and our pork rinds.
Wow, that's fantastic. And what do you think? What do you think about what barbecue is today and the barbecue world, and how it's not plateauing at all. It keeps growing, but it's also the world of barbecue is. It just seems like there's a larger extended family, and I tend to see you all over the place, dotted all over the place on different. Even there was the Ugly Delicious. I think I saw you on. Wasn't that recently? That was.
Yeah, don't tell me how to cook my. You sound. That's what I say on that show. Look, I love it. The more people, barbecue's a family, and the more people that want to come in and join that family, the merrier. Yeah. What I don't like is, and I think that show made a good point on. I don't like somebody to tell me what's authentic and what's not, and how I need to cook, or whether I'm the real deal or not. I think that we've proven. Beyond a shadow of a doubt that we're the real deal.
For sure.
A lot of people have a lot of different methods to cook, and I respect all of those. And we cook all those methods. We've got live fire pits up front where we cook whole hogs and we shovel coals all night. I manufacture a pit that we can walk away from for 13 hours at a time, and it cooks at a perfect temp with only wood and charcoal. We also use some gas assist pits because when you're talking about cooking as many ribs as we do, that's the most consistent and best way to cook them. And so I don't get caught up in this is how you need to cook it in order for it to be authentic. We use straight hickory. We're about as authentic West Tennessee as you can get. And I've been cooking that way for a long time, and my family has since 1827. So, like I said in the show, don't tell me how to cook my You're free to judge what's on the plate any day of the week. And if it's bad, tell me it's bad. If it's great, tell me it's great. But don't tell me how I need to get it there to you.
That's a great point.
So it's and there's a lot of new different styles of barbecue out there. And a lot of them are great. I mean, I've had some real crappy barbecue. Don't get me wrong. But there is some new and innovative things that people are doing and some different styles that are bringing more people under the tent. And hey, I like it all. You don't have to pick a favorite in barbecue. Yeah, most of us in the barbecue world don't feel like there needs to be a favorite. We all love to see our name at the top of a list, but at the end of the day, we may love everybody that's on that list, and we may and 20 more. A true pitmaster and somebody that really cares about the world of barbecue can respect its diversity and the many different styles and the many different ways to cook it.
Yeah, not saying like my specific type in my region is the best and the only type of barbecue, because that's short-sighted and naive and it just doesn't make sense. And that's another reason too why I am excited to do these interviews with people across the United States and some globally too, just because I want people to maybe step out their comfort zone or realize that there are different styles and that there are different and people are just as passionate about their specific style than anyone else, and it shows that you're not going to put brisket on your menu, and you wouldn't do that. It's not.
Well, and you saw you saw this week, we saw a perfect example of it with the Vice article or the Munchies article about Brooklyn barbecue and why is it taking over the world. And, you know, and I didn't read the full article, but there was a lot of backlash. They had a plate there, I guess, from Fat Sal that looked a little sparse in the eyes of a lot of people in the barbecue world. And, you know, it got just a massive amount of bad backlash. Well, I've had plenty of Brooklyn barbecue. I go cook in Brooklyn at Pig Beach. Billy Durney's a friend of mine with Hometown. The Fat Sal folks, I hadn't eaten at Fat Sal, but I heard that it's excellent.
Oh yeah, and they kind of were pioneers in the Brooklyn barbecue scene.
Yeah, and so we don't have to fight amongst ourselves. Don't let the food writers who don't do this for a living every day divide the barbecue world. It just, they don't have the right. They don't, you know, and I love a lot of food writers and there's a lot that do a great job. But if you're a food writer that starts to pit masters against each other, then you got it wrong.
Yes, definitely. No, I agree completely. And it just seems like a lot of people are into the Instagram presentation of the plate, the overfilled plate. And I think that that's what some people, they were trying to state that the plate was a meager plate, but it's just a plate of barbecue. It
just is what it is. Let me tell you, we just had a very flattering, nice article written about us in a major national newspaper that was syndicated all across the country, and the pictures that they took were and you know, what can you do? They wrote a very flattering article. It was great. I can't help it if they didn't take great pictures and present our food the way that we would have liked for it to be presented. It is what it is. There's sometimes writers take bad pictures. That doesn't mean that the barbecue sucks.
It doesn't. And some people don't have the best cameras or the best lighting. And it's like
exactly
their fault. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
You are honestly a breath of fresh air. It is not, but also too, there's a lot of people, not a lot of people like you, but a lot of people in the barbecue business that have that openly express how they feel about things because it's a passion. It's a passion project. You wouldn't be doing this if you weren't passionate about barbecue and the food that you're putting out.
Oh, absolutely. And the food business is hard enough as it is. We don't need people trying to pit us against each other, you know?
Yeah, and like part of the big thing about barbecue is that it's a close-knit community, and there aren't these like major secrets. People have little secrets, but people love sharing and giving advice and helping out. And by doing this interview that you've done with me, you've said so many things that future restaurateurs can watch this and get advice, and that's so helpful.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, if you ever feel like you're the best or you're doing everything right, then you're getting it wrong, because there's always plenty left to learn and plenty more room to grow as a chef or as a pit master or as a restaurateur.
Yeah.
And you need to be open to that. And I think that the best folks are.
And it seems like some restaurateurs too are like they feel like they're fighting against the customer. like it's if you don't treat the customer, they're not going to come back. I've worked with restaurateurs that would get on Yelp and just viscerate the customer, and I'm thinking this person's never coming back.
Yeah, I mean you gotta temper some of that. It's
with honesty.
There's certainly times that you feel like punching a customer in the face. I mean, but it doesn't mean you need to act on that. I mean, it's called self-control for a reason. And it can take a lifetime to build a reputation. And with our social media world and with the mob mentality that can be out there, it can take minutes to destroy it.
Easily minutes, yeah, for sure. Well, Carey, what else should people know? Like, is there anything we haven't touched on that people should know about your restaurant or yourself that I missed?
You know, we're a family-owned and operated restaurant. We're proud of that. We hang our hat on that. We treat our employees like family, and I would say that if you're going to open a restaurant, you need to have a lot of patience, but you also need to understand that your staff and your team will respond by the way that you act and by the way that you treat them. And that's how they're going to treat the customers. And so if you're yelling at them in the kitchen, chances are they're going to get pissed off at a customer because that's going to roll downhill. And so I would say that your team is everything. And the people that you surround yourself with is a huge part of who you're going to be as a restaurant. And that's what we try and do and practice in our restaurant. And so, we hope that we do, and I think that most of my staff feels that way.
Yeah, no, I've just heard great things, and I know that I've heard that the overall experience in visiting you has always been incredible, and so I haven't been, and I feel bad. I'll be coming out that way probably in May, so I will. Hopefully, you won't be at Memphis, and I'll try to coordinate it because you'll be at Memphis in May for sure.
The third weekend in May, I'll be in Memphis in May. So
maybe I'll plan on June.
But we'd love to see you.
Yeah, I would love to see you too. And I'm trying to make it out to Memphis in May too because I have never been, and I know it'll be a little overwhelming with how wonderful it is for me, but I can't wait to go.
It's fun. It's fun. It is overwhelming your first time that you go.
But that's fine. I have to go. I have to at least go once, and then the second time it won't be as overwhelming. But thank you, Carey. I appreciate your time. I'm glad that we got this hooked up, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. I'll talk to you soon, and I'll shoot you. I'll make sure I'll send you a list of all the different things that you have going on, so that way in the comments there's going to be a blog post with this too. But I'll make sure make sure I cover all the links for you. But I appreciate it so much, and have a great rest of your week.
Hey, thanks a lot, Kevin. You as well. We'll see you.
Thank you.